sajivam sadvaitam savadhutam parijana sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagat Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastam Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this 131st Prerana festival. Basically, this talk is held every month to enlighten, enliven, telling me that you have to give me some title because I am supposed to print the, posters and all that. So, and I had just not thought about anything. I was wondering what is to be told. This was some time back. And when he actually called me, I was reading I gave him the title. So I would like to read that paragraph. This is from the 8th canto, 5th chapter, entitled The Demigods Appeal to the Lord. The demigods are in trouble. The demons have attacked and practically they are losing. They are about to lose. And therefore now they are actually surrendering to the Lord. Please, please help us. Otherwise we have no hopes. And that is the time they are making this prayer. This is text 23. In that purport, it's a long purport. I'll just read the 2 paragraphs that is relevant to us. Srila Prabhupada writes the purport. Very interesting. Actually, if you meditate on this, each of these statements of his purports, there is amazing clarity of vision that comes. We may have good eyesight, 20 by 20 also, unlike me. But then, that is charma chakshu. Charma chakshu means material eyes, which has limitations. You can't see beyond a particular range like that. But when we read the great Acharya's presentation of the scriptures, then the intelligence becomes purified and you are able to see things as they are. Just like none of us can see electrons, protons, but the moment we hear the science book and see through the eyes of science, then we see, oh, this TV is nothing but electrons moving inside, or the electricity is nothing but electron moving, though you can't see, but you see through the eye of science. Similarly, by scrutinizing study of the purports, the intelligence becomes refined. The intelligence has two diseases. First disease is doubting. Actually, doubting is good. Doubting is a sign of intelligence. Fools simply accept everything, but intelligent people doubt. But what is the difference between intelligence and over-intelligence? Over-intelligence is, even after hearing proper answer from proper authorities, still if you keep doubting, then it is very unfortunate. So, some logical answers there, but then you have to realize it. Jnanam, Vijnanam. So first is doubting. And second disease of the intelligence is lack of determination. Kalat hai pan valat nahi. I say that. I understand but I can't. I know what is good for me but I am not able to execute. So therefore these purports are very important. They fine tune your intelligence. You are able to discriminate what is right from the wrong, and you are able to execute it determined way. And therefore, so Prabhupada writes here, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement consists of spreading Krishna Sankirtana, Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtana. All glories to Sri Krishna Sankirtana. Why is it so glorious? Why is the Sankirtan so glorious? Congested with so many other things. And therefore, people are making the mistake of identifying with their bodies. Even the big philosophers and scientists with whom we deal are practically all under the impression that they are their bodies. The other day we were discussing with a prominent philosopher, Thomas Huxley, who was proud of being an Englishman. This means that he was in the bodily conception of life. Everywhere we find the same misunderstanding. As soon as one is in the bodily conception of life, one is nothing but an animal like a cat or a dog. Sa eva gokharaha. Thus the most dangerous of the dirty things within our heart is this misidentification of the body as the self. Under the influence of this misunderstanding, one thinks, I am this body, I am an Englishman, I am an Indian, I am an American, I am Hindu, I am Muslim. This misconception is the strongest impediment and it must be removed. That is the instruction of Bhagavad Gita and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Indeed, Bhagavad Gita begins with this instruction, Dehinosmin yatha dehe. As the embodied soul continually passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. Although the soul is within the body, nevertheless, because of misunderstanding and animal propensities, one accepts the body as a self. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore says, Cheto Darpana Marjanam. To cleanse the core of the heart, which is full of misunderstanding, is possible only through Sri Krishna Sankirtana. The leaders of the Krishna consciousness movement should very seriously take this opportunity to be kind to the fallen souls by delivering them from the misunderstanding of material life. And I was reading the second paragraph and the phone rang. So now we are coming to the other paragraph. One cannot be happy in any way within this material world, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 8:16. From the highest planets in this material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery, wherein repeated birth and death take place. Therefore, not to speak of going to the moon, even if one is promoted to the highest planetary system, Brahmaloka, there cannot be any happiness in this material world. If one actually wants happiness, one must go to the spiritual world. Now, this is the part because of which I got the idea to give this lecture the title. Please listen to this. The material world is characterized by a struggle for existence, and survival of the fittest is a well-known principle. But the poor souls of this material world do not know what is survival and who is fit. Survival does not mean that one should die. Survival means one should not die, but should enjoy an everlastingly blissful life of knowledge. This is survival. The Krishna consciousness movement is meant to make every person fit for survival. Indeed, it is meant to stop the struggle for existence. The Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita give definite direction on how to stop the struggle for existence and how to survive in eternal life. The Sankirtan movement, therefore, is a great opportunity. Simply by hearing Bhagavad Gita and chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, one becomes completely purified. Thus, the struggle for existence ceases and one goes back home, back to Godhead. So, you may ask, what inspired me to tell Nandagop Prabhu that the title of this lecture should be Winning the Game of Life? I was thinking, what is the name of the game? The name of the game is struggle for existence. That is the game in this material world. By default, you have to play the game. As soon as you are born in this world, you have to papi pet ka sawal hai. Roti kapda aur makan. You have to struggle for existence. Struggle. Everyone is struggling. A pauper is struggling and a billionaire is also struggling. Billionaire is struggling to maintain his billions, and the pauper is struggling to earn something and somehow improve his status quo. So everyone is struggling. No one can say that I am just coasting along effortlessly. So, the name of the game is struggle for existence. And who is winner of the game? Survival of the fittest. So who survives? Whoever is fit. And who is fit? Whoever survives. And who survives? No one survives. Everyone dies. Somebody survives? Somebody can survive. The person who realizes, I am not this body, survives in next life. That is also not complete. He still has to play the game. He has not won the game. He has to again, punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. He still has to play the game. The real winner of the game is who says, I have understood the perfection and I actually go back home, back to Godhead. Ami to jato amcha gawa, amcha ram ram ghawa. He is the winner of the game. So that is the end of the lecture. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Mahaprasade Govinde. Actually, if I have to condense today's lecture in one phrase, one Bollywood phrase, रोते हुए आते हैं सब, हंसता हुआ जो जाएगा वो मुकद्दर का सिकंदर जाने मन कहलाएगा. You are clapping, but I don't know how many have realized this. रोते हुए आते हैं सब. Hardly any of you, I don't know whether you really know what it means. I did my MSc in Speech and Hearing Science. And generally we get a lot of mentally retarded children for, therapy and all that. Hearing impaired cases. The first time in the case history we asked them, when your child was born, did it cry? Because if you don't cry, there is going to be, the whole parents will be crying throughout. You have to cry. A child has to cry. Because as soon as the child is born, his lungs have to be filled with the air. When the child cries, he has to take in the breath. Therefore, if the child doesn't cry, they hold him up and down and slap his bottom. Wah! Generally, in movies you may have seen. First the mother is shouting, labor pain. And then she stops crying and wah, the child cries. Success ho gaya, bachcha ho gaya. Because I hope he doesn't make the mother cry rest of the whole life. So, रोते हुए आते हैं सब. Whether you like it or not, you have to cry. And that is inevitable in this world. But, हंसता हुआ जो जाएगा. कौन हंसता हुआ जाएगा? इस संसार में दो ही लोग हंसते हुए जाते हैं. एक पागल. He is in the gutter and still he is laughing. Filthy, stinking and still he is laughing. Bechara. So such a person goes laughing. And the other person who goes is a self-realized soul. Antakale ch mameva smaran muktva kalevaram yah prayati sa madbhavam yati na asti atra samshaya. In the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, at the end of life, antakale cha mam eva smaran, one who remembers me, Krishna says, mam eva smaran karte hue muktva kalevaram. Kalevaram means body. One who gives up the body remembering me, yah prayati, who begins his journey, sa mad bhavam yati, he attains to my nature, my abode. Na asti atra samshaya. Arjun, have no doubt about this. That is the whole life. Life is the preparation, death is the examination. And who comes out with flying colors? Who remembers the Lord at the end of the life. And so therefore, Krishna says also, as Prabhupada explains here so many times, Dhiras tatra namuhyati dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yavaranjana. In this body, childhood is there, boyhood is there, youth is there, and then old age comes automatically, just one after another. Keeps changing. Actually, every 7 years you are not the same body. But we don't think we have changed, because actually we don't change, the occupant. So, it goes. And dhiras tatra dehantara prapti. Similarly, soul enters into another body. As soon as you give up this body, it enters into another body in due course of time. Some people say it takes 7 months. You sleep for 7 hours. But death is sleep for 7 months. Then you wake up in another womb. So that is the waking up. So, dhiraha tatra na muhyati. He knows I am changing this body. When you change your cloth, you are very happy. New cloth is coming. Old model gaadi gaya, naya model aaya. You don't cry over the old model. Acha hua, dispose karo, aage le lo. Similarly, it says, antakale cha mameva smaran. So to remember the Lord at the time of death is not easy. It's actually not easy. It's very easy to say. Sometimes people think, ठीक है ना, अभी मौज मस्ती करने का, मरते वक्त हरि बोल, Hare Krishna. I wish it was so simple. It's like a student saying, क्या पढ़ने का है? depend on Krishna at the time of exam. Hare Krishna and everything will flow. Surrender to Krishna and the hand will flow. No, sir. Even if open book test, you will not know which page to copy from. So it's a fact. So it won't happen overnight. It's the whole principle of practice. In fact, bhakti, the whole process of bhakti or spirituality, true spirituality, bhakti of devotion, is nothing but how to remember the Lord always and never to forget the Lord. Whatever we do, whatever ritual, even these lectures that we are hearing, or yatra you are supposed to go, I don't know how many of you go. Please go. It's an amazing place. We went there, especially if you want to be doing some mountaineering. The Ugra Stamba is there, where Lord Nrsimhadev appeared. Terrific climb. कोई माई का लाल है तो जाना. Anyway, so all this स्मर्तव्य सततम विष्णुर विस्मर्तव्यो न जातुचित सर्वे विधि निषेध्यास्युः एतयोरेव किंकरा. All the do's and don'ts are nothing but subordinate to this principle. What are the do's? Do this, do this, do this, do this. Prescriptions. Do something that helps you to remember the Lord. And don't do anything that makes you forget the Lord. That is the essential principle of all the instructions. And then, so somebody may say, how to do it? It's very difficult, isn't it? So difficult to remember the Lord always. But there is one secret. Anyone who knows this secret can effortlessly remember the Lord. Effortlessly. How? To love. When you love someone, forget about remembering. It is difficult to forget. I see many young people here. I don't know how many have fallen in love. If you have not yet, fall in love with Krishna. That is a good choice. So, when you fall in love, in fact, Rupa Goswami makes this. As a young woman naturally, spontaneously falls in love with a young girl, and a young girl naturally, nobody teaches, you don't have to go to school to learn how to love, how to glance, how to give your heart. पता नहीं कैसे मेरा हृदय खो गया. I lost my heart. Not in Vrindavan, in Mumbai. So nobody has to teach anyone how to love. At a particular age, it is spontaneous. Like a magnet being attracted, or an iron filing attracted to the magnet. It's so natural. Similarly, the nature of the soul is to become attracted to God. Krishna means all attractive. He is all attractive, actually. But we are not attracted because our iron filing is rusted. So much oxide is covered, so you have to scrape. Cheto darpana marjanam. You have to scrape, and that scraping is Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, no sangharsh. Krishna, Krishna means scrub, scrub. Rama, Ram means pour water again and clean. Again scrub and clean. But unfortunately, as soon as you go out, again rust comes. Again you have to remove the dust. So the whole process is recommended, and one who has this, two things you can see. Acha, sometimes people ask, how am I to know that I am actually moving towards that? Two things again. First thing is, if to the extent you have actually realized that you are not the body, a person becomes fearless of death. Because he knows, I am not going to die. We had devotees, one 32-year-old Russian devotee, 4 or 5 years in the movement, dynamic person. He got cancer, terminal sickness. And this man went to, we have a hospice. Hospice means a place where they have to they go to give up their body, not for sure that he is about to die. So in Vrindavan we have a hospice, Bhaktivedanta hospice. So this brahmachari was there, effulgent looking, very brilliant. If you see him, you won't even know he is suffering from cancer. Very well built person, but from inside he had developed this. So many devotees, including his guru and others, who are coming to meet him. Sometimes they'll come with flowers, sometimes they come with some little morose and serious, and they want to pacify him and kind of calm him down. But when they would enter inside, he would be blossoming like a flower, and he would tell them, actually I pity you all, because I am going, you are all staying back. And he said, don't waste time, chant Hare Krishna. He would preach so strongly, when people would come out, he said, who is sick? We have the cancer of ignorance, or this fellow has the cancer of physical body. Amazing. The way he departed also, simply amazing. But he's there. Chhodna to hai vaise bhi. No problem. But the consciousness. While a person, because a devotee knows wherever I am going, I am going to be engaged in the service of the Lord. Neha bhikarmana shosti pratyayo. Whereas a person who thinks is the body, two difficulties come. Number one, he has to give up all the things that he is attached to. Imagine if you are stuck to something and you have to pull out something. It's like फेविकोल लाके चिपका दिया, खींचना पड़ता है. It's extremely difficult. Similarly, subtle attachments are there, and because of that, when departing from the world, it's extremely painful. Very painful. You can experience this. Suppose your vehicle is, one motorcycle is parked outside, and somebody comes and hits the tank and breaks the glass or something. You say, "Kaliyug hai kya? Log bigad gaye." But if that happens to be your motorbike, newly bought one, and somebody even scratches it, your heart gets a scratch. Standing here up the balcony. Why? Because subtly you're connected. It's mine, and therefore anything happens to that, any dear object, any person, any situation, because most of our happiness today depends on some external object or a person or a situation. It is very, very, situation is very, because everything in this world keeps on changing. It's temporary, and therefore you are bound to be disappointed. But to the extent a person depends on his happiness, yo anta sukha antararama. It's not that he becomes detached. He understands. I have something, I need to use it for what it is meant for before it is taken away. It's like a flower. If you are attached to the flower, then every time the one thing falls off, every petal falls off, you feel bad. But if you know this is going to be there for 1.5 days, fresh, after that it's gone. So you utilize that to that extent, knowing fully well that, but as long as there, I'm not going to utilize this. Such a person, dhiras tatra namuhyati. Secondly, a devotee knows wherever I am going in the service of the Lord. And therefore, there is no fear and anxiety. But there is uncertainty, and therefore there is fear in a person who is in ignorance. Anyway, when we remember the Lord, that is the purpose of bhakti, as I said. All the rules and regulations are meant for remembering the Lord. Yad anudhya asina yukta. In fact, remembrance of the Lord is compared to a sword. If you have a sword in hand, you can easily, suppose there is a knot, too many knots tied up, and you have to urgently go somewhere and everything is tied up. So there are two ways. You keep on removing the knots. Otherwise you take a scissor or take a knife and cut it. Just take it and move ahead. Similarly, one who is yad anudhya asina yukta, One who is equipped with the remembrance of the Lord, which is compared to a knife, karma granthi nibandhanam. He understands, I have a body, it has its utility, I'm supposed to use it. Then, before I leave, sat nimitte varam tyago vinashe niyate sati. I know it's going to be finished after some time. How to utilize it to the best of its ability. That is intelligence. Full utilization as long as it is there. And no problem. And it goes, okay, I did my best. So, Chindanti kovidastasya kona kuryat katha ratim. So, if you want to cut this difficulty of this kind of a thing which causes all this trouble, you have to cut it. And if you want to cut it, you will have to be equipped with a sword. And the sword is remembrance of the Lord. And that remembrance becomes easy when you have rati. Rati means love. One time I was traveling to Aurangabad and I was reading Bhagavad Gita, and opposite me one professor was sitting, and he asked me, "Oh Marg, क्या पढ़ रहे हो आप?" जैसे भगवद गीता, वो क्या है? वो क्या है? वो वेदों का सार है, सर्वोपनिषदों गावो दोग्धा गोपान। अच्छा, एक वाक्य में सारे वेदों का सार बता सकते हो क्या आप मुझे? In one sentence, not even 10 minutes. He said, one sentence I want you to tell me the whole essence of the Vedas. And I was thinking, 25 साल से मैं घिस के पढ़ाई कर रहा हूं और तेरे को एक वाक्य में बोलूं? That's the nature of people. Kaliyuga, everything crash course. Everything crash course. Everything. Because life is too short. सब ज्यादा टाइम नहीं है. जो भी करना है, press the button, immediately get it. 5-day matches became 1-day international, and 1 day became 2020. Just like that, condensed. Therefore, Krishna gave a condensed Vedic seminar to Arjun on the battlefield. That is Gita. He wants further condensed. So only one sentence. And I was thinking, तो क्या बोले? And suddenly I remembered, right here, very senior sannyasi Mahavishnu Swami Maharaj had come here many years ago, and he had told all the Vedas essence in one sentence. See, sometimes devotees, when they read Prabhupada's books, at the end of the thing, when you ask, क्या पढ़ा? क्या पढ़ा नहीं मालूम, पर क्या पॉइंट था एकदम? क्या पॉइंट था? क्या पॉइंट था नहीं मालूम, पर क्या पॉइंट था? So remembrance is a big problem. Sometimes people get discouraged to study just because of this. बोले कुछ याद ही नहीं रहता है. But I assure you, I can guarantee you, when the need comes, Krishna says, Matta smritir jnanam apohanam, he will push himself. If you have heard carefully, if you have done shravanam, prane prayana samaye kapavada pittaya, at that time when you need it the most, when your everything, your ears, your eyes, everything was proper, if you utilized it to attentively hear even few statements which has impressed your heart, you may forget it, but when you need it the most, it actually comes. That's the nature of the spiritual knowledge. It comes when you need it. And I remembered, I suddenly said, yes, I'll tell you. And I asked him, why you wanted such a short? He was, abhi utarna hai mere ko, aa gaya, Manad. Manmad mein utarna mujhe. So he said, tell me in one sentence. I said, yes, I'll tell you. And then I told him this sentence, what Mahavishnu Swami Maharaj had told me. He said, Krishna hamare pati, Krishna hamare gati, unme lagao mati, तो हृदय में उनके होगे रति, उनके प्रति होगी रति. This is the essence. This is the essence of the whole Bhagavatam. Actually, the whole Bhagavatam was spoken to Lord Krishna, by Lord Krishna to Brahma in 4 verses. In first 2 verses, the Sambandha was spoken. Sambandha means, what is my relationship with God? Number 1, He is the maintainer, He is the ultimate proprietor, He is the ultimate enjoyer. We are all His part and parcel. Mamaivamsho jivaloki jivbhuta sanatan. And secondly, if you see anything separate from Him, it is Maya. That's not, what is Maya? Maya means what is not. And what is not? Nothing is separate from Krishna. So seeing Krishna everywhere means to actually see Krishna's energy and therefore utilize everything in Krishna's service. So, He's Pati and He's the Gati. Ultimately, that's the destination. Yad Gatvan Anivartante. And therefore, this is Sambandha Gyan. And what is Abhideya? Abhideya means how to establish that connection by Mati, by making an endeavor to remember Him regularly, which is the process of bhakti. And what is the Sambandha, Abhideya and Prayojan? Ultimately, Vedic knowledge is 3 things. Sambandha, your relationship; Abhideya, how to revive that relationship; and Prayojana, why to revive. Kya milega? Kya milega? Obviously, if somebody asks you to do something, kyun? Kya milega? Kya milega kya isme? Why should we establish a relationship? Because you become happy, satisfied, blissful. Because that's your nature. Satchit Ananda, when you are connected. And that Ananda is when you develop love. To love and be loved is the nature of the soul. And so therefore, very beautifully, this is the ultimate goal. And therefore, if anyone can develop that is described, tatah padam tat parimargithavyam. So understanding of the goal can actually give you perfection. One devotee in our temple, is actually a true story. He was frustrated with life. This is 35 years back, I'm telling the story. He told me later, recently, I think 2-3 years ago. But 35 years back, when he was a unmarried person, he was living in Vileparla. And he was very disturbed, very morose. Something happened, he got frustrated. He decided to end his life. Early morning he decided, I'll go to the railway track and put my head and that's it. And that day happened to be Ganesh Chaturthi day. Shubhasya Shigram. So he decided and he was straight away focused, going to actually commit suicide. And he passed through a Ganesh Chaturthi Pandal. So some Bollywood songs were being played. Those songs were more decent than current, relatively. And he heard that song. And that song stopped him from committing suicide. That doesn't mean you keep hearing all those. But when a person is desperate, he wants to take shelter of something or other. So as he was walking, this pandal was loudly, there was a speaker being played, and the song was, he told me, आज चल के तुझे मैं लेके चलूं एक ऐसे गगन के तले जहां गम भी न हो आंसू भी न हो बस प्यार ही प्यार मिले. He said, यही तो मेरे को चाहिए. He wrote it down. Actually, he wrote that whole song down, went to his house. In his colony, there was a fellow who was a cameraman in the Bollywood. So he caught hold of him. He said, "Kaun likha hai, mere ko pata karo. Who is the composer of this?" And that fellow found out, who is the composer? And he said, "This is the person." And this fellow went and met him. बोला ये आपने लिखा है? बोला हाँ हाँ मैंने लिखा है. बोला एड्रेस कहाँ है? He started laughing. The fellow had composed. He started laughing. ऐसा थोड़ी होता है, ऐसा ही लिखा बस. The fellow who wrote didn't believe. बोले बॉलीवुड में होता है बस. And they lived happily ever after. ऐसा कुछ होता है? बस हर एक व्यक्ति चाहता है. But amazing thing is, how can a person even think about it until and unless there must be some place there? Why do, even in the fairy tale, they even think they lived happily ever after in the house of chocolates? You know, so many fairy tales. How does it come into the, if there was never existing, something ever existing like that, how could it even come in your heart? It's there somewhere. But right now we are not aware. This fellow was so much convinced. नहीं मेरे को एड्रेस चाहिए. बोला यार अभी निकल यहाँ से, मेरे को नहीं मालूम. This fellow was नहीं, कुछ तो होना, कहीं तो होना चाहिए, कहीं तो होना चाहिए. And one day somebody gave him some address of this temple and told him Sunday afternoon there is a program here. So he came here, and as he entered and sat down, the lecture was on the 15th chapter, 7th verse of Bhagavad Gita, 6th verse. Natad bhasete suryo na shashanko na pavakah yad gatva nanivartante tad dhama paramam. This is describing, Krishna is describing Natad bhasete suryo. Spiritual world is a place where there is no sun, there is no need of moon, no need of electricity, fire, nothing. It's self-effulgent place. And yad gatva nanivartante. And he was describing, ऐसा जगह है जहाँ प्रेम ही प्रेम है, गम भी न हो, आंसू भी न हो. आंसू है, प्रेम के आंसू है वहां. ऐसे यहाँ तुम रोते रोते, गर्म आंसू नहीं, ठंडे आंसू, आनंद बाष्प. And today he is one of the senior most counselors. He is guiding so many people and is inspiring many people under him to understand the goal of life and achieve this. So the point is, deep inside, sometimes the people who compose this, I don't know, even this fellow who said Mukaddar ka Sikandar, Jane Man, I don't know whether he really understood the gravity of this statement. See, every statement has different levels of understanding. So yeah, कौन सुखी रहेगा, जिसको करोड़ मिल गया वो सुखी रहेगा बस. Probably that's their level. But then, only by spiritual understanding, you go to a really very advanced level. Now, okay, that's very wonderful. हमने सुन लिया, गम भी ना हो, आंसू भी ना हो. अभी प्रैक्टिकल चीजें बोलो महाराज. That is like a PhD level. But right now the level that we are, maybe in a KG level. It is one thing to say that I am not the body. But it is one thing, it's totally another thing to, yesterday we were having a discussion. Somebody saying we should be elevated. I said no, you have to descend. From bodily level to soul level you have to descend. I said, he said, why descend? This knowledge has to descend from the head to the heart. This is head knowledge. Jnana means head knowledge, theoretical knowledge. Logically you understand, yeah, it makes sense. But for the head knowledge to sink into the heart and become Vijnana, it is a lifetime project for it to gradually sink down. And that is sadhana. First is Siddhanta. First understand the Siddhanta. And then sadhana is to make that knowledge sink into the heart. And once it sinks in the heart, then sadachar. Then our achar, then our every aspect of our words, thoughts and action will actually be so okay, now we have understood that we are not the body, we are the soul. But then there are three levels. First is the gross body. that we see of each other. Next to that is the subtle body, and next to that is the soul. But our identification with the gross and subtle body is so deep rooted that it's easy to say one thing, but it's very difficult to actually get into that. So how do we actually move towards that? How do we move from the bodily concept to the soul concept, where we can actually, and once you're in this concept, understanding this realization, it really doesn't make a difference whether you are in the spiritual world or whether you are in the material world. You are actually transcended. You can experience that even here. You transcend the dualities. So, in Shukadeva Goswami in Srimad Bhagavatam very beautifully describes a formula. I call it the triple A formula for self-realization or moving towards self-realization. First A is of the body, second A is of the mind, and third A is of the consciousness. First A is more activities. The second A is of the mind, absorption. And the third A is of consciousness, to be alert. To be alert. Now, in the material world also, we see all around us, people are very active. In fact, the non-devotees are more active than the devotees. Because once you come to know we are not the body, थोड़ा ढीलापन आ जाता है. इतना क्यों मर मर के कमाने का, क्या है, ज्यादा सुख नहीं मिलने वाला. पर इतना कन्विंस भी नहीं है कि हम आत्मा है, तो इधर भी नहीं, तो न घर का न घाट का. So first installment is laziness of a sadhaka. इतना क्यों मर मर के करना, नहीं वो नहीं, ये भी अभी तक पूरा कन्विंस नहीं हुआ है, तो इतना ज्यादा करने की भी उत्सुकता नहीं है. So it's like a danger zone. It's like dark night of the soul, it is called. It's like entering a dark tunnel. You don't know whether that side it comes out or not. Somebody has told, जाता है, सुना है मैंने. And then you enter. बोला जबरदस्त है, जगह बहुत जबरदस्त है, पर ये लंबा टनल है. अच्छा पक्का ना है, ऐसा बोलते हैं, काफी लोग बोला है. And then you enter and enter and enter, and you see the light is becoming dull and dull and dull here, because you are entering inside. Either, as you enter the tunnel, that light on the other side becomes dimmer. And then one turn comes, S turn, and then you turn, पीछे का लाइट बुझ गया, आगे का लाइट भी बुझ गया, आगे का दिख ही नहीं रहा. How long will a person be enthused to move along? Unless there is faith. नहीं, उसने बोला है, कुछ तो है. कोई तो आके बताया था एक बार. So therefore, it is also called the dark night of the soul. Dark night means, material life, क्या है material life में? That the senses have a taste for material life, but intellectually you are convinced इसमें कुछ दम नहीं है. And the senses have no taste for spiritual life, but intellectually अच्छा ऐसा कुछ है, आत्मा कुछ है बोलते हैं लोग. तो जहां कन्विक्शन है वहां टेस्ट नहीं है, और जहां टेस्ट है वहां कन्विक्शन है कि उसमें दम नहीं है. This is a phase that a sadhaka has to go through. It's a little difficult, dark tunnel. And therefore, at this time, the activity is there. Nidraya hriteinaktam vyavayane chavavayah divacharthe haya rajan kutumba bharanena va. They're busy. They are convinced, I'll become happy if I go a little more, if I get this much money, this position, and this situation, if I change my location of my house from this area to that area, if I get little extra 2 more bedroom, little this, little that, and I can assure you I'll become happy. They are so convinced. Why are they so enthusiastic? hanging upside down in the locals, practically. Which we do, program nahi chal yaar, chhod kal karenge program. We may not be so enthused, because they are more convinced that they are getting happiness. We are not so convinced. Atma nahi hai to by chance. Kal pata chala Bhagwan hai nahi to. And therefore we are not so enthusiastic as devotees. They are convinced, thoda, and I'll become happy. And absorption, Shrotavyadini Rajendra Nanam Santi Sahasra. So many topics to absorb themselves. Just today I was reading one of our devotees and detox. What is that? WhatsApp? No. What detox? This gadget detox. People are so much absorbed in this topic, that topic, in the trains I see. There is no discussion. बागुल में कुछ मर भी गया, हाथ बढ़ा के हो गया, busy 1 minute देखना. So much absorbed in their own, As soon as you get inside and sit inside, immediately you take out and start. There's hardly any conversation for hours together sometimes. So much of energy. They don't even look out. And no wonder what kind of a consciousness that leads to, what kind of problems that it leads to. So absorption in so many things. And finally, you are so much absorbed that you are not alert to the passing of time. Time flies like that. Time is so imperceptible. Dekhte chala jata hai. I always say this, Suddenly somebody will call you uncle. Somebody will tell you Dadaji. And before you know, you will be a painting on the wall with a beautiful plastic garland permanently put. रोज कौन चढ़ाएगा? गए ना अभी वो. So time flies like that. Before you know, quick. So they are not alert to the passage of time. But a devotee is also, as soon as he comes into understanding this truth, he also applies this AAA formula. He's also active. He's active. But that activity is more geared towards what I want to do. I want to act in a way that I can move towards my goal. He's also absorbed. That's why in the Bhagavad Gita there is a shloka, Ya Nisha Sarvabhutanam Dasyam Jagati. They said 180-degree shift in consciousness. They are also active, these people are active, but in different modes. They are also absorbed, this person is also absorbed. This person is alert to how to make one extra money or extra advantage. But every moment of life is like billions of gold coins gone. Ayusha kshanayeko nalabhya swarna koti bhi. You can't purchase a moment of human life even for billions of gold coins. That's going away, but we actually don't realize. But as soon as a devotee comes to understand what is the goal of life, then he has become alert to the ticking of time. Tick, 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 oh, it's glowing. With every rising and setting of the sun. Of course, but a person is fearful. A person who understands the body is fearful of time. Because time means it is going to take away everything and snatch away everything. And for a devotee, time means exciting, because he knows I'm coming closer and closer to my goal. So time is the same, but it has a different perspective to a devotee and a non-devotee. And then, therefore, he starts performing. Now we are coming to the most important point. All right, I am intellectually convinced I'm not the body, I'm the soul. Very good. How do I actually go about realizing it? उसमें कुछ दम होना चाहिए, substance होना चाहिए. That is why Krishna says, Yagyarthat karmanaha anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. It has to be performed in the spirit of yagya. Otherwise you get caught up in the bodily concept. What is yagya? The other day we had Janmashtami, last Janmashtami. There was, we performed a yagya, huge homa. And there was a big, this pujari was sitting, our devotee was sitting, and then he had a big fire, and he was keeping so much ghee, and swaha, pouring so much ghee into the fire, and then some dry fruits, and he lastly put one dhoti also inside, new dhoti. So there was one fellow sitting, वो देख रहा था, dry fruit, घी, गया स्वाहा, अच्छा खासा धोती पहना भी नहीं अभी तक, स्वाहा. एंड आई कुड अंडरस्टैंड, ऐसा देख रहा था वो, क्या कर रहे ये लोग. एंड आई वेंट एंड आई टुक हिम असाइड. कैसा लगा आपको? एक प्रश्न पूछूं? हाँ पूछो पूछो, मुझे मालूम. आई कुड गेस. आई सेड या. इसे प्रभु जी वेस्ट क्यों कर रहे हैं ना? क्यों वेस्ट क्यों है? नहीं घी को खा के थोड़ा मोटा तो बन सकते हैं ना, कुछ काम कर सकते हैं हम लोग. सिर्फ स्वाहा डाल दिया आपने घी में, ड्राई फ्रूट्स डाल दिया, धोती भी डाल दिया. I said, I took him aside and I said, see, try to understand. When you take water and you want to nourish the tree, where do you put the water? You put on every leaf, every fruit, every flower. नहीं ऐसा थोड़ी होता है. किधर डालता है? जड़ में. जड़ किधर है? अंदर है ना. तो डू यू पुल आउट एंड पुट द जड़ इनसाइड द वाटर? नहीं. और जमीन पे डाल देते. तो वेस्ट हो गया ना जमीन पे डाला तो. नहीं वो जड़ में जाएगा. बोला हाँ ऐसा ही. I asked one devotee to bring the Bhagavad Gita. I said 10वां अध्याय का 8वां श्लोक देखो. अहम सर्वस्य प्रभवो मत्तः सर्वं प्रवर्तते. I am the source of everything. I am the root of all existence. From me comes everything. From me everything is sustained. I said you are not seeing it. But because it is a spirit of sacrifice. See, this is the difference between a life of sense gratification and a life of responsibility of sacrifice. This is the big difference. One time I was going, again train only I get all kinds of people. This was around 9:30 at night. I entered the train. The coupe was empty. Only one young lady was sitting. Must be 23, 24 years. Jeans, t-shirt. She was like corporate lady, very, looks like she's in a big position. She was like busy talking to someone. I was also talking Hare Krsna. And she looked at, after the conversation over, she looked at me, and there were only two of us in that coupe. Somehow it was empty. And she said, Hare Krishna? Bola, Hare Krishna. Oh, acha, acha, acha. And then she started striking a conversation, asking me. And then she asked me one question. समझे एक प्रश्न पूछूं? हाँ पूछो, वही तो प्रश्न पूछना तो जीवन का उद्देश्य है. और सही प्रश्न पूछो. And she said, because I didn't say that to her. I was just thinking, Atha to Brahma Jigyasa. Goal of life is to ask the right question. So she said, Swami ji, शादी करना जरूरी है क्या? So far I had never been asked this question. Especially by 23-year-old girl. And I was like kind of for some time taken aback. करे तो अच्छा है. I was thinking, Babri, isko, how do I kind of reply to her? ठीक है. And I told something and ठीक है, always धन्यवाद. And then she went to sleep also. And she was telling, she told me, क्या जरूरी है शादी का? तो देखिए मेरा जो भी जरूरतें है ना, all my needs are being fulfilled. I have so many friends. So when I am in this mood, I am very happy, I associate this. When I am in little morose, when I want to go around for mountaineering, I go with another kind of friend. And I am earning so much. There is no need. Practically there is no need for me to get married. But I don't know why my parents are pushing me. हो गया, jaldi karo. Anyway, I told her something and she went to sleep, but I lost mine. I was thinking, इसको कैसा बोले? करते ही क्यों है आदमी शादी? Then I started thinking. And I was reading in the Mahabharata that as soon as a person is born in the material world, he is indebted for every breath of air he lives on this planet. He is indebted to so many people. At least 5 kinds of people he has to pay back. Every time you take a breath inside, every day you live on this planet, meter बढ़ रहा है debt का. You have to subsist. Why? Deva. First, there are 5 types of rin you have. 5 types of debt you have. The first is Deva Rina. Because you are dependent, every part of your body is controlled by a particular demigod. So every time you move your eyes, a particular demigod is responsible. Even to pass stool and urine, a demigod is responsible. If he locks up and goes for holiday, you will have a holiday. So every part of the body is controlled by certain demigods. Not only that, the sun, do you pay light bill to the sun? Try to use this electricity without paying the bill. Immediately it gets cut off. Water bill cuts off if you don't pay. Telephone bill cuts off. So much of light, heat, energy is being consumed. So much of water, air. नाक के ऊपर मीटर लगाया और उसमें मीटर भेजा तो आपको बिल भेजा तो on 2 nostrils 1 meter and somebody comes to study, Vayudev comes, कितना मीटर हुआ? ये तेरा बिल है, हवा का बिल. Can you imagine how much we are supposed to pay back? Mother Earth, she is Bhudevi, she is not simply a piece of earth. How much we are utilizing everything? How much are we paying back? So Deva Rina, that is the first Rina. Then Rishi Rina, for every knowledge that you are getting, material knowledge or spiritual knowledge, thousands of people have struggled their whole life to get that knowledge, to understand it, to preserve it and to transmit it. Did you realize? Did apple fall on your nose and suddenly say, "Kyun phal gira?" Law of gravity. So many people, so many sages, so many ancient sages have gone this whole Shastra, all this knowledge. It has been transferred by dint of parampara. And every knowledge, there is somebody, and from there it has been passed down and come to you. It's like a, what do you call it, a relay race. Imagine if it is a 8,000 meter relay race, and 8 people are supposed to run the relay race. You take a baton and you run 1,000 meter and hand over to the next guy. And he runs 1,000, hands over. And the 6th fellow hands it over to the 7th fellow, and the 7th fellow, "Chhod yaar, kya bhagne ka hai, chhod diya." The 8th fellow is waiting there. 6 fellows have run 6,000 meters. It's a big responsibility. It's not a question of danda kaun utha ke bhagega, chhod dena, ye phek dunga. No, we are letting down all of them. And this is a responsibility. Similarly, the spirit of yajna is this. For our survival, for our presence here, so many have done. Therefore, there is a big expectation. We have consumed so much. So, Devaruna, Rishiruna, even the spirit of burden, the concept of burden. Mother Earth was burdened by demons. What is this understanding of burden? I used to think, ये क्या है, सब 60 किलो 70 किलो होंगे, इतना burden कैसे हो गया? Why is it a burden? Very simple. Who is a burden? When you take from society more but give less, you are a burden. Imagine In a company, if a person is taken inside, is given 5 lakhs and he does only 500 rupees, how long will the company keep him? Right? He's taking 5 lakhs and is giving only 5,000. Oh, how long? It is a burden to the company. Similarly, we are taking so much from this world. If we don't pay back, we are burdens. That's a burden. The concept of burden is a very subtle burden. Just like time, because of time, something may become burdensome. You hold this glass like this for 1 hour, after that it will become burden. If a guest comes to your house and tells, I'm only there for 3 days. Okay. 3 दिन हो गया, 8 दिन हो गया. जा ही नहीं रहा ये. He becomes a burden. Right? He has told 3 days. 3 days okay. You say, how are you? Very nice. Yeah. और थोड़ा गरम गरम बहुत चाहिए, कुछ सब्जी थोड़ा. बोला अभी खाता क्यों? ये ले सब्जी. So little by little you see that if staying overstay, that means you become a burden. Similarly, once utility is done, then that same thing becomes a burden. Once the crop is already given, the tree becomes a burden. Once you drink the water, the bottle becomes a burden. इतने जगह ले रहा है, फेंक दो उसको. Once a person becomes old, he becomes a burden. In an uncultured society. But in a cultured society, they think, अरे यार, जवान था, काम किया है, थोड़ा उसको सम्मान देना चाहिए. We are here because of that person's sacrifice, therefore you respect. But still, it's a burden. It's a burden. Because you're taking so much, you're not giving back. So, time, utility, even extra quantity, if quantity becomes too much, suppose you go to a doctor and he gives you 6 महीने का दवा है, 6 महीना, हर दिन 6-6 घंटे में लेने का, एक काम करता हूँ, सब ले लेता हूँ एक ही बार. That becomes a burden. It's a medicine, but taken in extra dose becomes a burden to the body. It has a reverse effect. So similarly, on this planet, if we are taking and not giving, we become burden. If you really want, and whoever is a burden is a demon. Hare Krishna. This is a new definition. A demon is a burden. A demigod lightens the burden. Imagine. How do you determine who is a demon? Very simple. Or who is a demigod? Who is Devata? Daiv sarkha manus hai hote. Dev sarkha. Dev manus and asur manus. What is the difference? When you die, how many will cry? This is a simple test. When you die, how many will cry? When people cry, अरे अच्छा आदमी था यार, उसके पीछे 1000 लोगों का चलता था, बेचारा वो गया अभी. But if people celebrate, अच्छा हुआ यार गया, तम सब. बुड्ढा इतना करोड़ के ऊपर बैठा था, ना खाता था ना खिलाता था लोगों को. In the Talwan, there was a demon, Dhenukasur, Gadha kahin ka. He was actually in the form of an ass. He would not eat the fruit and he would not distribute it also. It was rotting, the smell was coming, but he would not eat it. And when he was killed, demigod showered flowers. Sar dard gaya. Celebrate karo. So such people become actually burden to the society. So it's big responsibility. Devarana, Rishirana, Bhutarana. Bhutarana means so many living entities. Can you imagine, we are dependent on the cow for milk, we are dependent on the honey bee for pollinating the flower, otherwise we won't get the fruits. Nothing would come if the bees would not pollinate, the butterflies would not do their needful. If an earthworm did not do something, you won't get food to keep the crops very fertile. The milk would not become yeast. For everything we are dependent on so many other living entities. How dare we call ourselves, I'm a self-made man हूँ. तू क्या ऊपर से नीचे आया क्या? You just drop from the sky? How foolish to think that we are self-made man, not dependent. Think oneself independent. How much we are dependent? Bhuta. Nrinam. We are dependent on so many kind of professionals. Imagine if there were, if you had to manufacture your own cloth. Everyone had to manufacture their own cloth. Everyone had to stitch their own cloth. Everyone had to manufacture their own shoes. Everyone had to construct their own house. तो खाएगा कब, जूता कब, बनाएगा कब, कपड़ा पहनेगा कब? If everyone were to do everything, you may say, नहीं हम लोग पैसा देते हैं ना उसको, पैसा देगा पर बनाएगा कौन? Imagine if you have to learn all the trades to live yourself. So we are dependent on human beings for different kind of needs, and that expertise has come from that profession in that succession of sacrifice. That person has learnt, and before departing, he transfers to someone. He transfers to someone. That's how the whole world is going on. And therefore, as soon as we are born, we have to receive. First part of life is to receive all that we are possible. But before departing, we have to give back. And Deva Rishi Bhutanana and Pitrinam. Pitrun means for the body. For this body, you are dependent on your ancestors. And how do you pay back? That paying back is done by Shraddha and producing children. She told me, this lady, before going to sleep, "Kya shadi bacche, jhanjat hai." She called it jhanjat. It is a fact, it is jhanjat. I have seen. एक छोटा बच्चा होता 2 साल, इतना बाप रे, वो, it's nice. Mothers feel very nice, enthused, but it is so much anxiety. But you are also in anxiety. Why don't we realize that? And therefore, if this concept is not there, today life is only enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. अच्छा नहीं लगा छोड़ देना. इससे क्या झंझट? Some person asked me, is it really? We can live together now. Why get married? वो सब झंझट बाद में कोर्ट में जाके सेपरेट होना भी झंझट है. So the why root cause of this is the lack of principle of yajna. A life of responsibility, a life of tapasya. Tapasya is what? It is not a question of whether you like or not. It's a question of responsibility. It's a question of giving back to the society. I was explaining this to my sister, and then she told me, "तूने शादी क्यों नहीं किया फिर?" ऐसे बोला, अरे बाप रे, तो सोचा ही नहीं था मैं. ये तो पूरा AK-46 मेरे ऊपर ही घुमा दी. Then I told her, नहीं, शास्त्र का उसमें सपोर्ट है. देवर्षि भूताप्त नृणाम पितृणाम न किंकरो नायम ननि चराजन. He says only one, in case there are some faults in this. Suppose you are not able to pay all the bill. Still, sarvatmanaya sharanam sharanyam gato. If you water the root of the tree, in case you did not water any other part, chalta hai. Chalta doesn't mean that's a excuse for neglect. But in case there is a shortage of anything, if there is a shortfall in anything, but since you are watering the root of the tree, you are doing it in the spirit of yajna, everything else is compromised. Yoga kshemam vahamyaham ananyas chintayanto mam ye jana. Krishna says in the Gita. But if someone is 100% dedicated to my service, in case he has fallen short, I take that responsibility. Just like one man fights for the country and dies. His generation after generation, his son and his grandson and great-grandson also gets some quota, in engineering college, freedom fighter quota. अच्छा, क्या फाइटिंग किया था आपके परदादा ने? नहीं, एक दिन ऐसा खड़े थे, उनको जेल में डाल दिया था. कितने दिन? 2 दिन डाला था. पर सर्टिफिकेट दिखा दिया कि मैंने देश के लिए जेल में गया. The government thinks, बेचारा हमारे लिए जेल में गया हो, and therefore he neglected his family. So the country feels responsible because he left his family and sacrificed for fighting against our enemies. Therefore, our responsibility is नेक्स्ट 21 जनरेशन चलो सबको इंजीनियरिंग सीट फ्री में, क्यों? फ्रीडम फाइटर कोटा. So if a atheistic country also can feel like this, why not the Supreme Lord? Nimitta matra bhava savya sachi tasmatu muttishta. Krishna is telling Arjun, you become an instrument and execute. I have come here to establish dharma. If someone assists me, I am indebted to him. Anything that is lacking, I will fulfill that. And everything that is there, I will protect it. But this is very important. That principle is also very important. Anyway, the point is, there is a life of enjoyment or just gratification, superficial gratification of the senses, and there is irresponsibility basically, or very selfish, self-centered, self-interested kind of lifestyle, and another lifestyle of done of responsibility. Actually, when a person takes satisfaction and pleasure in executing that responsibility, that happiness, no one can snatch it from you. If you are dependent on external things for your pleasure and happiness, you are bound to become miserable, because one day it will be taken away. Whereas for your satisfaction, you are dependent on serving, which is the nature of the soul, the constitutional Jiver Swarupoy Krishna Nityadas. If one takes pleasure in actually executing that service and takes pleasure in not even expecting something, but doing just that service, in that execution of service, such a person's happiness can never be taken away. In life or in death, in happiness or in distress, in honor, in dishonor, heat or cold, in any situation of life. This is a real winner in the game. Because in any situation, whether it is Naraka, whether it is Swarga, because he is engaged in serving the Lord. And therefore, advanced, pure devotee of the Lord is actually a real winner. Now, again, this understanding is very simple. But to come to that platform, it will not happen overnight. If we just say, I have some long-standing chronic problem, and you go to the doctor, कुछ ऐसा चीज दो, instant relief होगा क्या? बोले 20 साल से सिगरेट पी के ऐसा सड़ाया है तू अंदर, उसको अभी 20 सेकंड में कैसा जाएगा? धीरे धीरे लेना पड़ेगा, जाएगा वो. So similarly, since time immemorial we have been doing it. Of course, bhakti is extremely powerful, but we have to do it very seriously. Still, this game of life is like snake and ladder. No, क्या है? सांप सीढ़ी, हाँ सांप सीढ़ी. ये सांप सीढ़ी का गेम है, ये गेम ऑफ लाइफ. इसमें सांप क्या है? टेंडेंसी टू जस्ट लेट गो ऑफ योर अदर रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी. छोड़ यार, आज मूड नहीं है, आज अच्छा नहीं लग रहा है, मन नहीं कर रहा है. Every time we fall down because of the unwanted things in the heart, that dirty thing in the heart, was Prabhupada calls. A tendency to connect with the body, the mode of passion and ignorance, is actually pulls you down. The body is actually dead matter. The soul is the spirit. The soul takes you up. The nature of the soul is always going up, and the nature of the body is pull you down. Imagine, a soul is there. Radhagopinath. A soul is in the body of a 180 kilo fellow. And he can run, he can jump. But if the same soul, which is 10,000, the tip of the hair goes away, to lift that body, person's body, takes 4 people. And that too, they have to keep changing shoulder. Right? So similarly, the nature of this is like a snake and ladder. The propensities which make us move up or connect with the soul, executing these kind of do's in the scriptures, they are like this ladder. They elevate you, and anything that of the all the kind of anarthas we respond to each time, they actually pull us down. And therefore, of course, there are two things, pratikul and anukul. The anukul things are like little ladder, and the pratikul things are like the snakes, which actually pull us down. You may say, even that is a burden. Even responsibility means a burden, isn't it? Responsibility is a big burden. There are two types of burden. The burden of the beast, gadhe. गधा भी ना, धोबी का गधा, वो भी उठाता है. And there is a burden of love. There is a burden of love. That burden is a pleasure. Actually, for a man of responsibility, that burden, he actually takes it very happily. So therefore, we just have to do our best and then leave the rest. That's all. You don't have to. You try your best and let others leave the rest. You know, one time I was in our school for 8th standard students. I did a debate competition, and the topic was hands that work are more important than lips that pray. So I asked the children, which side you want to be? Most of the boys and some of the girls also raised their hands. Hands that work, hands that work. And most of the girls, lips that pray, lips that pray. Achha. Then I wrote down and I said, chalo apna apna point bolo. So the boys stood up and said, Prabhuji, work is worship. काम से काम होता है. अच्छा. And then they wrote so many, God helps those who help themselves. So very nice points. Then I looked to the girls. I said, so अभी बोलो आप, आपका क्या है? They said, Prabhuji, hands करते रहते ना ये लोग. द्रौपदी को कौन सा हैंड मदद किया? द्रौपदी ने तो हाथ उठा दिया. दीन बंधु दीनानाथ मेरी डोरी तेरे हाथ. She didn't use her hands. She just lifted her hands and said, नहीं, ये हाथ भी काम नहीं आने वाला. And that is the time the mercy of the Lord came. Her prayer helped her. So then one boy stood up and said, Prabhuji, प्रार्थना करने के लिए हाथ जरूरत पड़ता है ना. Then another girl stood up. She said, Prabhuji, गजेंद्र का कौन सा हाथ था? उसने तो सूंड उठाया बस. And in this way, hot debate went on. After I said, okay, बहुत points हो गया. अभी सच बोलो, हाथ रख के हाथ छाती के ऊपर बोलो. Do you believe in hands that work is more important or lips that pray is more important? Prabhuji, 60-40. Somebody said, no, 30-70. Then after the whole thing, then they said, Prabhuji, अभी हम लोग बोल दिए, आप बोलो. आपका क्या पॉइंट है? सच्ची बोलो, ये कौन सा काम करता है? I said, shall I tell you? I said, yeah. I said, I believe, this is my personal belief, and this is also scriptural understanding. 100% hands that work are more important than lips that pray when you are working. And 100% lips that pray are more important than hands that work when you are praying. You are clapping, but they didn't clap. They said, Prabhuji, आप तो politician हो बस, सब दोनों को खुश कर रहे हो. You are trying to satisfy. सच बोलो, सच बोलो. ये important है कि वो important. I said, I'm telling you the truth. Work as if everything depends on you, and pray as if, not as if, knowing that everything depends on the Lord. I said, you want proof? So one boy had told, oh द्रौपदी तो 5000 साल पहले, आज कौन ऐसी लड़की उठाने दो हाथ और साड़ी आने दो देखता हूं मैं. So he had kind of challenged. So I said, even today it is working. Even today it works. I said, कौन सा प्रभु जी, कहाँ हुआ बताओ. I said, here, you listen, you look at the life of Srila Prabhupada. He said, if you read his life, he was struggling before he went to the West. Even after going to the West, the first few years, he was struggling, leaving no stones unturned. He was working as if everything is dependent on him. He was not thinking that Krishna will do everything. No. While Arjuna was fighting, he was fully fighting. Similarly, Srila Prabhupada was fully executing. But, heart of heart, what was his feeling? You look at his prayer on the Jaladuta. He said, Bhakti nahi, Vedo nahi, name khub daro, Bhakti Vedanta. My Lord, I have no intelligence, I have no power, I have nothing. Just make me dance as you want. Make me dance, my Lord. I'm just a puppet in your hand. So while working, it's not that you make me dance and therefore I keep sitting there sleeping throughout the day. No. He was struggling and doing all out as if everything was dependent on him. But in the heart of heart, he was dependent, thinking that everything is actually dependent on the Lord. So I would like to kind of conclude with appreciating the contribution that we have. This is actually we will take up this life of responsibility when we see how much somebody has sacrificed to give us what we have today. You know, like in the national calendar also you have August 15th. 15 अगस्त क्यों मनाते? हो गया ना 1947 में हो गया हमारा. हर 15 अगस्त को झंडा क्यों करने का, उठाने का? Why do we do it? Why do we celebrate? Why do you observe it? Because just to remember, hey, look, for you to get what you are enjoying today, how many people sacrifice their lives? If you are not acknowledging that, recognizing it, appreciating it, worshipping that freedom, you may take what you have for granted and you may lose it very soon. So similarly, these great days of appearance and disappearance, days of acharyas, we discuss what kind of sacrifice they did, so much of hardships, just so that we could relish, we could enjoy, we could be happy. And this acknowledgement, this recognition spontaneously, happily makes us take up the burden of love. And the more we take the burden of love upon ourselves, the less we burden Mother Earth and the society at large. This is Prabhupada's 50th anniversary of going to the West, on Jaladuta. So I just composed a small poem. I would like to say this for this audience. I had not. So I would like to share this. I wrote a small poem. First time I wrote a nice poem. So more than a nice poem, it's for a nice person I wrote. First time I wrote was when I was in the hospital. Hospital ka jeevan kaisa hai, I had written. But this is something good I will just say. I'd like to share. It says, just 6-liner. It said, because this was the year when Prabhupada went on Jaladuta. Said, एक नाव प्रभुपाद ने लेकर एक नाव प्रदान किया. एक नाव प्रभुपाद ने लेकर एक नाव प्रदान किया. एक नाव की महिमा गाकर एक नाव से बचा लिया. एक नाव की महिमा गाकर एक नाव से बचा लिया. एक नाव का आश्रय देकर जीवों का उद्धार किया. एक नाव का आश्रय देकर जीवों का उद्धार किया. धन्यवाद प्रभुपाद आपका, सबका बेड़ा पार किया. You can clap after you fully appreciate what does now stand for. एक नाव प्रभुपाद ने लेकर, obviously it's very obvious, he took जलदूता. एक नाव प्रदान किया. What is this now? In the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam there is a beautiful verse. Swayam samuttirya sudustaran dyuman bhavarnavam bhima madabhra sauhrada bhavat padambhoruha nava matrate. This now is compared to leaving back. They cross over back to the spiritual world. Prabhupada went back home, back to Godhead. But before leaving, the boat that he used to cross, he left it on this side of the ocean of birth and death. And what is that boat? That boat is his personal example, his life's example, and his books, his message, his contribution, his wonderful Bhagavatam and all his wonderful books that we have displayed there. This is, so ek naav Prabhupada ne lekar ek naav pradan kiya. He gave us his books, he gave us ek naav ki mahima gaakar. He made us appreciate and realize one boat, but all of us have. And what is that boat? Nudeham adyam sulabham sudurlabham plavam sukalpam guru karanadharam. This human body, of all the 84 lakh species of life, human body is like a boat which is most suited to cross the ocean of birth and death. So he implored us, don't waste the human form of life. This is a very special boat you have received and time is ticking off. Do not waste even a moment. So ek naav ki mahima gaakar, ek naav se bacha liya. One naav which is a crazy naav. And what is that boat? Indriyanam hi charatam yan mano anuvidhiyate. It is the mind, tadasya harti pragyam vayur navam ivambhasi. That mind is like a boat which has no direction. If you allow the senses to focus on one place, the mind goes away like that and takes you somewhere else. So be careful about the boat of the restless mind. If the wind goes this side, the senses go here and there, the mind goes away. Be careful about that. Ek naav se bacha liya. And ek naav ka ashray dekar. He gave us one ashray of one boat. What is that? The process of bhakti. Samashritaye padapallavam plavam mahatpadam punya yasho murare. The tendency or the process of taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. एक नाव का आश्रय देकर जीवों का उद्धार किया. धन्यवाद प्रभुपाद आपका सबका बेड़ा पार. He has given us the facility by which we can conclude. So, to conclude, I'll speak two things. There is a कबीर के दोहे. जब हम आए जगत में, जब हम आए जगत में, जग हंसे हम रोए. ऐसी करनी कर चलो, हम हंसे जग रोए. ऐसी करनी कर चलो. चलने से पहले कुछ ऐसी करनी करो और क्या भक्ति करो भाई. That we can actually achieve the perfection of life. He said, हम हंसे जग रोए. Arey, what a wonderful person left. And we are telling Ram Ram Ghyava. He reasons ill who says Vaishnavas die while thou art still living in sound. Vaishnavas die to live and living spread the holy name around. Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote on the tomb of Haridas Thakur, one of the great acharyas, Namacharya, who gave us the holy name, how to cross across. He said, he reasons ill who says Vaishnavas die while they are still living in sound. By their example, by their words, by their message, they're still living. Vaishnavas die to live because they have lived a life of sacrifice. They die to live, and while living, spread the holy name around. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.